Good evening, everyone. Oh, that's loud. Usually I'm used to projecting. Welcome to our first town hall discussion of 2023. I'm Mayor Laurie Jadwin. Welcome to all of you here at City Hall, for those of you who might be watching at home. Our topic this evening is an update on our comprehensive parks master plan. And as you can see, I have with me members of our leadership team from our Parks and Recreation Department. They will introduce themselves in a minute. So have some members of our Parks and Recreation staff here. I see some members of our Parks Board. We have several council members here. In fact, almost all council members are here. That's fantastic. Love the engagement that we're having. So the purpose of tonight's discussion, as I mentioned, is to update you on our comprehensive parks master plan. The last full plan in this regard, and full plan is critical words, was done back in 2006, right, Steph? Steph's like, not that long ago. Longer ago, much more long than that. So 2006 was the last time we did a full comprehensive parks master plan. Now that we have dedicated dollars for capital projects, it is really imperative that we have a strategy for how we are going to invest those dollars, not just for public safety and public service, but certainly for our Parks and Recreation Department, because we need to ensure that we are meeting the needs and the wants of our community as we move forward. In that vein, we have also been working on the development of the city's first ever long-term capital improvement plan. What that plan will do is to take all of the capital projects that we have in the city and come up with a strategy as to how we will prioritize and invest capital dollars into those projects for the next 5, 10, 15 years and beyond, again, so that we are being responsible in how we are investing those dollars. The Parks Master Plan that you're going to hear a little bit about tonight will be rolled into that CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, as we go forward. The Parks Master Plan that our team will be talking about tonight will provide goals and recommendations for the department that will really talk about recommendations and objectives for what the department will do going forward in order to meet the wants of this community. What does the community want from our Parks and Recreation Department with regard to our facilities, our programs, and everything that this department does? This is a draft that you will hear tonight. This is a draft of the final plan. This is the final opportunity for public input. In a few minutes, Director Farrell will be talking about all of the work for public engagement that was done as part of this plan. But tonight is our final opportunity to update you on what the plan has, to allow you to ask questions of the department, as well as to those of us from the administration and council who are here tonight, before we then present a final plan to council for discussion and hopefully for adoption. So now I'd like to turn it over to Director Stephanie Farrell of our Department of Parks and Recreation, who will talk to you a little bit about what a Parks Master Plan is and what it is not, and what you can expect to hear from her team tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do, as Mayor indicated, I'm Stephanie Farrell, the Director of Parks and Recreation, and I would like my team here joining me to introduce themselves as well.
I'm Brian Gill, the Recreation Superintendent.
I'm Alan Little. I'm the projects manager for the department.
I'm Zach Guthrie, the Parks and Facilities Superintendent.
I start off by saying thank you. There were a lot of individuals and groups that came together to really help us progress this plan. I see a lot of those faces here today, so thank you for being here. But the Parks Board, the Parks Foundation, and the Master Plan Steering Committee, and I, of course, would be remiss without the staff of the Parks and Recreation Department. So all of those individuals and more really helped us create and progress this plan as it is stated in draft form today. We will have a question and answer at the end of our presentation, so please hold your questions to the end. We'd be happy to have that dialogue then. I'm going to go in a little more depth from the history. Mayor touched on it a little bit, but in 2006 was our first adopted plan for the Parks and Recreation Department. It really presented an overview and a strategy to everything from staffing operations, the maintenance of our facilities, to capital planning at that particular time. In 2015, there was an update that was presented at that time, and due to budget constraints, the capital improvement plan was reduced from that scope. That plan also was not formally adopted. However, we have and still do reference the outcomes that were presented from that document. Moving along into 2022, with the passage of issue 12, along with the changes of the community and really the changes of the Parks and Recreation Department, it became a logical timeline in order to provide an update to that master plan. So with the support of Mayor Jadwin and City Council, we were approved to enter into a contract with pros consultants in order to manage the planning of our master plan. With that, I think it's important to understand what a master plan is, and I'll honestly answer that with what a master plan is not. What our master plan is not a facility plan. It's not a development plan. What it is, it's not intended to be a plan for a specific site. What it is a resource and a roadmap to determine what the vision is of the department and create sustainable action plans in order to accomplish those goals for the department. So master plans are a common practice. It is something that a lot of Parks and Recreation agencies do in order to continue to be successful. It's also a requirement for accreditation, which we do strive to gain ultimately within the 10-year time frame of this plan. So I'll move into the actual presentation here, possibly. There we go. And really the purpose of the plan. So why do we do this? Why is this important? And community engagement is really a main focus and a main driver for why we do this. In order for us to be servants to the community and accomplish the task that the community wants to see, we have to learn what those objectives are. So the master plan creates a mechanism in order for us to gain that information. It's also an evaluation of our current standards. How are we operating today? What are the things that we do very well? What are the things that we need to improve on? That criticism is always, it's sometimes a good thing in order to understand how we need to progress and make improvements. And ultimately, it's an action plan. How are we going to gain and move forward as a department? What are those things that we can actually accomplish to meet those objectives of the community? So the process of the plan was really segmented into 3 different areas. There was a where we are today, moved into where are we going tomorrow, and how do we get there? So that first phase, it really was a data dump. The pros consultants created a Dropbox for us to be able to input any information that would help them understand how the department operates today. There was also a facility review. So the president of pros came into Gahanna and did a guided tour to see all the facilities and parks so that he could determine and evaluate our assets as they are presented to the community today. There was also a recreation program assessment that was developed. Each of our recreation staff members were given a worksheet. It was an expansive worksheet. We had a hardy timeline in order to accomplish that because there was a lot of information that was requested to input into the consultants. And moving all of that information, then we moved into that phase 2 with the public engagement. So this is really where, what are the things that we want to accomplish? What are the things that the community wants us to accomplish? And with that, there were interviews, there were focus groups, there were surveys that were presented. Another way in order to present that information or gain information was the consultants did a demographics and trends review. So that is, what are the trends in recreation programming that are throughout the industry and throughout Central Ohio in itself, so that we can see how are we comparing with other agencies. Moving into phase 3, using all the information about where we are today and where we want to go, that's where those strategic action plans came into play. And this is ultimately where you're going to see a lot of this information come out today. What are those action plans and what are those plans that make sense for the department to invest time and money into? I'm going to skip over 2. There were two separate surveys, as I had mentioned, for public input that were provided, and ultimately they were the same survey, but they were presented in two separate ways. One was a random sampling of 1,000 households received a hard copy survey by mail. The goal was to attain at least 375 surveys to be returned. We were thankful in order to receive over 600. So what that does is it increases the validity of the survey data, and it gave us a over 90% level of confidence with the information that we gained. So we're very thankful about the participation that we had with that survey. There was another survey that was presented virtually for those who didn't receive that information. So with that, the survey, there was a third party who managed the survey and the data compilation, and the way that the information was interpreted by using a priority investment rating. And what that is a weighted score based on the importance that the residents place on an amenity and how many residents feel that there's an unmet need. So the 8 points that you see on this slide are the amenities or facilities that scored the highest based off of that priority investment rating. So what that does is it shows us what the community really wants to see and what they want to continue to see or expanded services. And I'll make a note here, multi-use paved trails is something that we saw over and over and over again. It's not something that was a surprise to us, but this community definitely has an investment in trails, and they want to see more. And noting back to the master plan, out of the 2006 master plan, it was identified that trails were important to this community. So I'll say my predecessors worked very diligently in order to now attain, we have over 20 miles of trail due to the information that was gained from the master plan. So it just shows that the information to the master plan really does matter to what progress is made. With that, there were other key themes that came out of the master plan. Really enhancing and developing our existing parks, it means a lot to this community. So we have a lot of great parks that people traditionally use. So instead of just building new and forgetting about the existing facilities, the community really spoke very loudly about enhancing and developing into the assets that we currently have. The replacement or building new of an aquatic facility also is something that came up repetitively throughout the plan. A new community recreation center or indoor space is something that also we know as a department we do struggle with having that indoor space in order to develop and implement programming for a year-round user. So that's something that we need to improve upon. And along with that is increasing the programming of the assets so that we're bringing people into the spaces that we have as a community to help enhance that community overview. With all of that, of course, that ties back to funding. So, of course, what is the funding strategies in order to get these things accomplished is something that we saw frequently throughout the plan. So at this point, we're going to dig a little deeper into the evaluation of those strategies of how we implement and progress this plan. And I'm going to hand it over to Zach Guthrie to take over Parkland and Trails.
Hello, everybody. So getting into Parkland and Trails here, goals and strategies were identified that include 5 main focus areas for the department. So I'm going to begin with Parkland and Trails. So starting out with the vision, create exceptional experiences for all age segments in every park and on every trail in the city. And the goal of that would be to enhance existing parks and trails to maximize enjoyment for a fun, safe, and memorable experience for all users. So as part of the master planning process, we evaluated large and small amenities within our park system. So that's ranging from the actual park properties to picnic tables to pumps to pools to playgrounds, so everything within our everything that we operate and maintain. So this process identified opportunities for the city to not only improve our park system, but also to provide upgraded services. So within that, the master plan identified ultimately 10 goals and strategies. I condensed that down to 4 main categories with us today. So that's renovating existing park areas, update current and expand park amenities, develop operational plans, policy, and processes, and to complete existing projects and plan for future development. Through the master plan, we're developing strategies to remove unused or outdated park amenities and to provide new updated amenities. So this was taken at Rice Avenue Pond after we restocked the pond with fish. So it seems like a small, simple task, but it provides a lot of ecological benefits. Issue $12 helped us to restart this type of program, and ultimately just provides a nicer space for the residents in that area. So in partnership with the Gahanna Parks and Recreation Foundation, the tennis courts at Friendship Park were converted to pickleball courts in 2022. The pickleball is a growing trend that is identified within a master plan. We saw the need, had the opportunity, we're able to upgrade that space. Adjacent to that court is a basketball court. If you've been to that park, you notice that it has severe cracking, the hoops are outdated. That's an opportunity that we see as in the future. This year we plan to have the rest of that site updated. And then there's fencing, so there are layers to each park and everything we're looking at. So things that we need to update and upgrade. Wait, I missed one there. Yeah, okay, I missed the pool. The master plan also identified a need for updated bathrooms. So this is an initiative we were able to start last year with some funding, ARP funding that we had. This picture is from the Gahanna swimming pool. So we updated flooring, partitions, some fixtures. We also had other 3 parks that we were able to update last year. In the future, we've identified other areas where to add bathrooms or upgrade those. Another goal is to continue to update neighborhood and community parks, incorporating updated design standards for all properties. So here's the installation of the senior center sign. You may remember it before this when it was a half wood sign. So we're very proud of this project, but this is incorporating those updated design standards, and we have 3 phases of this park project. So this is the first one was to start the installation of the park signage the entrance ones. We'll continue to phase 2 of that this year, and then in future years, we'll continue that with wayfinding signs on the trails, the internal park signage. It'll all be branded with a similar theme, the rustic steel, very park look, and is what we're going for there. So over the last several years, Academy Park, we've put some dollars towards that, but there are future dollars that need to be upgraded there as well. This is the large field, Field 5. It's like the high school size field. We're renovating taking it from a grass infield to a dirt. Before it was very unplayable. The dirt will make it just a better surface and safer surface. And ultimately players will be able to play more ball there. We continue to update the dugouts there and the batting cage netting. That's a picture of Ashburnham Park. It's one of our neighborhood parks, our pocket parks. And this is where we really dug into the small details of how we operate and what we do. The black border around the playground wasn't there in prior years. It led to some safety concerns with the mulch not staying intact, and also some maintenance problems there. So that is a design standard that we've adopted going forward. So in future playground upgrades or installs, there'll be some kind of a border to keep, if it's playground mulch that's in that area. It also will lead to better access if it's a concrete walk, which Alan's done with several of the playground upgrades. Okay, we'll get into plans, policy, and processes. So the master plan has set a goal for us to develop a forestry master plan and further develop a street tree program. So this is a picture of our forestry team, which I've got, shout out a couple of them over there, this is a hazard tree removal that's happening there. So we have some funds and have worked on a street tree program, but need a fully involved program for that to serve our residents. On your left, that's a kayak paddle. Our park crews 2 or 3 times a year during the summer season, they paddle the Big Walnut and clear it of debris and hazards to make it a safe waterway. So waterway access while also protecting and restoring the Big Walnut Shed is an initiative and goal of the master plan. We have our horticulturist to the right there. She's spraying for invasive species, something else we've been working on and has been established within the master plan is to complete a land management plan. And that just provides maintenance standards and operational procedures for our department in order to how we manage the natural resources to the best of our ability, and have a process of everything from mowing to the invasive species to tree removals or tree plantings. It does identify all of those things. Okay, our last section here is future development. So this is the plan for Section 8 of the Big Walnut Trail. So it will complete a decades-long process that was first identified in the 2006 master plan. So the new section of trail, it'll connect to the section behind the Gahanna Pool, head south along the Price Road property behind the Shep Naz Church, and then eventually it'll go over 270 along the Hamilton Road Bridge, and it'll end at the Preserve Dog Park. So this is in conjunction with the project that our service department has been working on for a number of years, the reconstruction of the Hamilton Road Bridge over I-270. So that's in partnership with many organizations. The grants were earned from that. ODOT is a big partner on that. So the trail will come after that bridge project starts in the coming future. And then the last couple of future development, so we also have goals to maximize the use of existing sport complexes, and then lastly, to relocate the maintenance shop operations, which the city's been working on for a number of years to find a home for our parks operations area. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alan Little, our projects manager.
Thank you, sir. If that last picture was hard to see, it takes up a whole wall of my office, and I look at it every single day. That's one of those projects that are, as Stephanie mentioned, decades in the making with planning and funding. We're going on 15 years. I know there's people in the room that I've been working with for 7 years now on a mountain bike trail, and it's people like you that really drive what we can get done here. This master plan also helps reinforce those projects that we're doing now, but much like Stephanie had mentioned, it doesn't speak to what are we doing with this park, what are we doing with that park, but it does help put those bumpers on us to get us going in the right direction for what we will do when we have the money to spend in these areas. So we can exercise those funds in a responsible way. And that vision is to maximize the outdoor and indoor space. We've got users for this system that are 365 days a year, and we need a place, and that doesn't always mean indoors in the winter, but Ohio's not a great place to put a cross-country skiing program together either. You can't count on that. So, the addition of indoor space gives us a nice solid recreation programming opportunity, both for programming, but for also additional income to help support our other programs. And then the goals, obviously, are the recreation facilities, get them updated and future-proof them. If we're going to build something, let's make it viable for 50 years. And you see recreation facilities, and a lot of you know me as a parks guy, but honestly, every single park we have is a recreation facility. We want to get people to them, and we want people to feel safe using them, and however they choose to recreate, whether it's passive recreation, active recreation, reading a book, spending some time alone. I think COVID proved that everyone needs a place to go other than just home to get their mind right, to exercise their body, whether it's spiritually or physically. So that's what we want to provide. I clicked. So to that end, one of the projects that we're working on now is Price Road. For many of you, this is the first time you're seeing these pictures. These are indoor renderings of Price Road, what it can be. And our hopes, and I know the recreation people, every single day we're talking about what lights need to dim when we flip this switch and things like that, but it's really exciting watching them start framing what the possibilities are to have some more and additional space indoors. We've been able to make good use of the clubhouse forever. The addition of the senior center was very helpful for us to be able to spread out our offering to those people that need a space to rent. But this will be an anchor for us, both from an environmental education standpoint to yoga, you name it. We've got a great and beautiful place to use out there. And it's also on the very end of the Big Walnut Trail. Zach referenced Trail Section 8 as being, our furthest end. This is right on 7, so we'll be able to kick off 5Ks, 10Ks from there, host weddings, wedding receptions. It's a very, very exciting time to be working on this. We're fortunate enough to get state funding to help us along with this too. So we're able to leverage Gahanna taxpayer dollars with state funding as well. So, oh, and I missed Gahanna Woods. I apologize. We all know we've got a great and valuable resource in the State Nature Preserve out there at Gahanna Woods. Historically, I don't feel, and most of this I feel falls on my shoulders because I've been here so long, but haven't done a good job teaching about that land out there and its value. OSU has made a great resource out of it through salamander studies, ephemeral pools, everything they've done in that area. But we really need to communicate that and sell it to the residents of Gahanna, what a valuable resource we have here in our own city limits. So that's something that we need to grab a hold of and do a better job of education. And having a place to do that from would be key in that end. And then the swimming pools, obviously, I'd be remiss if I missed that. I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't know that we've got aging pools. And not only updating and fortifying the bodies of water there, possibly reimagining what it means to go to a community pool, whether that's expanded splash areas. I know we need zero depth. I mean, I swam in that pool when I was a kid, when I was a tadpole, and I learned to swim in there. And I remember the little block wall in there that you'd bust your nose on. So it'd be an exciting time for me to be able to update that pool and get it up to community Central Ohio standards. So definitely can't miss that. And then accessibility. You saw the responses from our citizens, and it's accessibility not only ADA, but getting access to, like Stephanie had mentioned, outdoor adventure sports. Whether it's an adventure park or if it takes its form, through other non-traditional sports. That's what we're talking about, is getting accessibility. This is another picture of Price Road. And again, like I was talking about, we've got a rear drive going in, and we're taking advantage of some state funding. So we'll be able to get access for maintenance, access to the trail. We'll be able to get people in and out of that facility in a safe and controlled manner. So we really are looking forward to how are we going to get people in and out of this place and be able to use it in a wise manner. I started my first full-time job here at the golf course, and it's always bothered me that when you park in the parking lot, you walk by the fuel facility, you walk by the dumpsters, you walk by the golf carts, you walk by the maintenance facility, then you get to the pro shop. So I've seen a number of people walk upstairs first thinking, well, this can't be the pro shop over here because this doesn't feel right. That's what I think about every time we design a project. I want it to be as someone that walks into this park for the first time and it makes sense to them. We've been there 1,000 times. I grew up there, so I know where the pro shop is, but I have to look at it through the eyes of someone that's never stepped foot in that parking lot before. And that's who I try to be every time I design a park or help design a park. So adventure from concept. And as I had mentioned before, thank you to the people that are helping with the mountain bike trail. One of the projects that we're heavy in right now is at Academy Park. A lot of people don't know, maybe you do, but we're adding what could potentially be up to about 3 miles of mountain bike trail to Academy Park. It would go all along an otherwise unused area. We do have wetlands that we had delineated that we're navigating around. It may be a teaching opportunity for those as well. We were able to take advantage of the Cherry Bottom Road project and an environmental study. We also got funding from MORPC and a brownfields assessment grant. So we were able to leverage a lot of alternative funding options to work on that site. And thanks again, I keep saying it, but you're due the thanks. Thanks to a lot of active residents, we were able to push forward on a project that we otherwise wouldn't have in our inventory. So again, that goes into those adventure sports, but thank you again. And then the skate park obviously is something that we led with, and that's been in our inventory for almost 18 years now. And then disc golf's another one. The lower left-hand corner is another concept that probably few people have hardly seen, but that's Lower McCorkle Park. Upper, obviously, to the left, but lower has about 30 acres that we would be able to activate that we don't otherwise use right now. And again, we've got one wetland down there that we can work around and even put some interpretive signage. But if we control the access around that, not only can we showcase the environmental resources we have down there, but get people out into our parks and into our woods. And then connectivity through planning. And again, this is access. Locally, I'm excited with the thought of the new library opening, and it's even more exciting to work on a project that might allow people to be able to get on a bicycle anywhere in Gahanna and ride their bike to the library. And I'm never in the programming world, but I got all excited because I thought up of a program where kids could ride their bikes to the library and get their late fees taken care of, and then I found out they don't even charge late fees anymore, so my recreation days were numbered as soon as I started trying to think up cool stuff. But the fact is, getting a trail to this library is huge. I ride my library now to the Dublin, or ride my bike to the library now in Dublin with my kids, and it's amazing to be able to throw books in the panniers and go home, and it's a good experience, and I would love to bring that to my hometown. So that's locally, and we're lovingly calling it the link to literacy. I wish I could take credit for that. But the link to literacy is something we're working on through Shaw and to the library, and that will continue on thanks to the Columbus Metropolitan Library with an easement. We plan to try and get that on up to Hamilton Road too, and through the right next to the high school's property. But then also regionally, regional connectivity, like Zach had mentioned, Section 8 will terminate near Tech Center Drive and Pizarro Park. But when the airport golf course redesigned their holes for the airport, they did make room for the trail to go. Like I said, we've been working on this for 15 years. So they did allow room for a trail to go on that side of Hamilton and on into Whitehall. Fortunately enough, Whitehall will have to deal with the railroad tracks because I don't think that'll be easy. But dealing with 270 in the airport's been enough for us to fill up 15 years. So, and another thing that's worth getting online, checking out is Rapid 5. Dr. Amy Atkin, that you would know from the COVID response, is heading that up, and it's really activating the 5 watersheds that are in Ohio and turning those blue ways into access to greenways. So through programs like Link Us, where they deal with CODA stops and public transit, we can then plan our local infrastructure around that, and that all feeds into an active transportation plan, which we're seeking funding from, and hopefully we'll get so we can really guide how we can link all of these greenways, blueways, public transit together, and be a multimodal community and get people around without cars. So that is all I have, and I'll hand it off to Mr. Brian Gill. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to shift focus into our recreation programming next. And so just our goal in our rec programs is to activate both of our indoor and our outdoor spaces that we've kind of already talked about this evening by offering different programs, events, those type of things to a variety of demographics throughout the community so that we can help create those lifelong users of our park systems, and then they can be advocates for us as well. So some of those key points that that were found during the process is we offer a lot of great events currently, but continuing to build off of that and offer events that are both diverse to the community, but also kind of expand them into more spring and fall. We do a lot over the summer, but we just want to make sure we're utilizing the Ohio weather when it lets us. So making sure that we're utilizing that space in our parks as best we can. We also want to make sure that we're bringing the community out to these areas so they can understand our strengths, but also our limitations as a park and recreation system, and that way they can become advocates and help us continue to make those improvements throughout. Through the survey results, the adult programming opportunities really rose to the top as a need for the community. We do a really great job with our summer day camps, with our senior programming, but that middle age demographic there with our adults was an area that was lacking. So whether that's health and wellness programs, whether it's sports leagues, just really finding ways to continue to reach that population and that community is definitely a goal that we need to continue to work towards. And then the final bullet here is just continue to grow what our current existing core programs are. So we have set focus on various programs. So from our pools, our golf course, special events, senior center, we have our summer day camps, but also programs in our health and wellness, our paddling and nature programs. We want to just continue to build off of that foundation that we currently have to keep offering new and exciting programs, again, that people look forward to and enjoy. Another goal from this is to develop an updated pricing policy. So we've talked a little bit about the master plans of past, and our current pricing policy is a direct outcome from those policies. So we want to take a minute. We're in obviously a new decade at this point since the last one was adopted, and really make sure that this pricing policy is setting our department up for success in the current times. And then the last bullet here is to continue to incorporate partnerships, whether this is partnerships with other public entities, not-for-profit entities, or private groups. We want to make sure that we're maximizing those opportunities and the value that these relationships have, as well as making sure that they're fair across the board for all of our parties. Maybe. There we go. I'm going to shift into our administration goals. And again, our goal as an administration, as a team here, is to make sure we're delivering safe, clean, and inviting parks and recreation programs that meet the community's expectations. So again, this is why we're doing what we're doing right now. And we do this by making sure we have the right mix of full-time, part-time, and seasonal team members. So that first bullet is to make sure that we have a sound organizational structure that works. We want to make sure that we are utilizing our team. We have a great team that has a huge knowledge and variety of knowledge experiences that they bring to our team, and making sure we're utilizing those positions and those employees to the best of their potential. Some of the steps we've already started doing with this, our parks and facilities staff over the last year or so have been able to take several part-time vacancies and transition those into full-time positions so that we have staff that are year-round. They're more involved in the ownership and the leadership within the division, and then that also helps them with professional development. So when we have an opportunity where a job opening, a leadership position opens within our department, we have internal candidates that are more prepared and ready to take that next step. As far as our recreation division, we've kind of done the same thing. We've been able to take a step back, look at what our needs are and responsibilities, and we've returned to having our 4 supervisors for our 4 largest operational needs, and then we build supporting staff around them, whether they're full-time staff, part-time staff, or seasonal, to make sure that operation is as successful as they can possibly be. That next bullet there is to keep building with our program contractors. So we have a great team, but there is a lot that we put on our own plate, and we rely on partnerships with other organizations to help provide programming. So the picture there on the screen is a program with Bali Sports Group. They're one of our longtime contractors that help run youth sports leagues in our parks. They also run some summer day camps, which help supplement what we're able to offer to the community. We run 2 camps at Friendship Park and at Hanna Park, and they're able to operate their camp out of Woodside Green. So again, it's another opportunity that we're able to partner and provide that service with something that we may not be able to fully staff or be able to operate with. So again, with that, we just want to keep building those relationships, whether they're with our current partners or continuing to reach out and find new individuals that are looking to kind of work within the community. And then that last one or that last bullet, as we talked about Price Road, Alan also talked about our clubhouse and our senior center. We want to just make sure that we're developing tools that will help us estimate what those operating expenses are. It makes a lot of sense. We need to know what those expenses should be as we then prepare what programming or other revenue opportunities we can utilize those spaces for. With our volunteer program, so I talked a little bit about transitioning some of our supervisors and our rec division. This is something that we've obviously started putting in place, and the plans are just reinforcing that. But we've assigned our volunteer program to one of our supervisors. In the past, it's kind of been whoever gets the request and whatever you can do in that area. But now we're able to have one individual be that person who coordinates all those asks. So as we get individuals that call in and say, hey, I've got a group of 30 people who are looking for something to do in May, we have somebody that's able to get their information, find a project, and work with the parks team to have that volunteer opportunity presented. This person also now is going to be able to spend time with our volunteer software that we have in place, but really help promote that and get those other opportunities out there. There's a lot that other communities are able to manage and do with volunteers, but they also have people that are dedicated solely to that, and so this is that first step to making sure that we can continue to build that program. And the last bullet is building those training programs for our part-time and seasonal positions. The graphic up there is our graphic for our future leaders in Parks and Recreation program. This is a program that we started. Chris is here in the room, and he's been taking the lead on it for us. But we started that this off season, and we have 14 seasonal staff members from either our pools, our summer day camps, or our special events, and they are going through a five-part online training session. So anything from customer service to resume building and interview tips, the difference between management versus leadership and how that transition for them looks when they go from being a lifeguard to a pool manager and now they're managing their peers, to conflict resolution, de-escalation. I think everybody in the room is probably aware of situations last year, and we really want to be able to prepare our staff and make them feel as ready and prepared for the season as possible. And then professional communication. So this program, once they complete it, we're hoping that they'll be able to take into that next step with us. So whether they're a lifeguard and they're being a head guard, or a camp counselor to a camp manager, but also when they leave us. We know that we are a great first job, and that's what we try to preach when we're out there trying to get employees. But we also know that we offer a lot of great things that they get to take on. So whether they go to school, or their next job when they're off an internship, so really trying to lay that foundation for those individuals.
With that, we've talked a lot about programming, operations, capital improvements, and clearly financing is a part of all of those things. One thing that I would say is very proud of, over the last 5 years, and the strategy and the focus of how we spend dollars and how and why. But this is just to reemphasize that there's continual progress to make towards that vision. A goal that was set by the consultants was to gain a per capita spending of within 20% of the standard that's presented by the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association, and that per capita spending is taken from the operational cost, including revenue and taxes, not including capital. So with that, there we go. It's ultimately evaluating the funding options that the community can evaluate for a community recreation center. So this includes private and public partnerships and evaluating what makes the best sense for the city of Gahanna. Another thing is to continue to build upon the capital improvement plan. As Mayor Jadwin indicated, this is the first capital improvement plan that we've had citywide, and the Parks Master Plan is included into that that plan. Without issue $12, the capital improvement plan wouldn't have been necessary and wouldn't have been made possible. There's been some significant progress with the capital improvement planning that we have, and an outcome of the master plan is to segment our capital projects into 3 different buckets. So there's a sustainable, there's expanded, and then there's visionary. So with sustainable, it's creating those capital dollars to reinvest into maintain our existing assets. That expanded is to add an additional amenity to the services that we have today. An example of that would be the splash pad at Gahanna swimming pool. So we're expanding an amenity of an existing asset. And then that visionary is those projects that we see as important but do take and will take time and partners in order to accomplish. And the Community Recreation Center is in that bucket. Like just moving back into the sustainable, the way that we are able to evaluate that is by looking at pool infrastructure, asphalt planning, playground and surfacing, and park renovations. So we're able to really take a look at those maintenance requirements and segment those even further so that we're investing an appropriate amount into the assets that we have today. Another thing is to incorporate other local jurisdictions and nonprofits. Again, this is how do we accomplish a mission that we have in like. So seeking out what those partnerships could look like and are available to us is something that is sought after as a priority in this plan. Alternative funding has come up a few different times. It's something that we work eagerly on. Anything that we can have to help leverage opportunities in order to get a project in motion is something that we put a lot of time and effort into and will continue to do so as we move forward. So with that, the Parks Master Plan, again, this is a 10-year plan. So this is intended to be a document that we will reference often. It's intended to be a document that doesn't just sit on this shelf and say, we did this, good for us. It really is intended to be something that's actionable and something that we can go back and help us make decisions. The previous plans are, again, still referenced, and there were many successes that came from those plans. The cost recovery model that Brian indicated, the athletic affiliate policy, and the trail development, and a big one, the creation of the Parks and Recreation Foundation were all components of the master plan, and we intend to continue to make that forward progress that those plans had presented, and really create a good vision and direction for the Parks and Recreation Department for the next 10 years and beyond. So with that, I appreciate the time and am open for questions if you have any. Sure. So with the 20% is actually from an operating standard that doesn't include capital, and our operating budget that's available online if you're interested in seeing that. From a capital standpoint, the capital improvement plan will be presented to council in the next few weeks, and there are dollar amounts associated with projects within the next 3 years. And again, capital improvement, that's not just for the Parks and Recreation Department, but that's for the citywide. So that will help determine some dollar figures.
Always accused of talking way too much, and then I get done and I realize that I did not talk about playgrounds or Woodside Green parking lot. So I'll hit those real fast. Going back to access, Woodside Green parking lot is something you saw roll off in the bid, and we took advantage of the street bidding program. A lot of our trails don't really fit well in the street program because it's a lot different equipment. If you imagine paving a street, it's not like paving a recreational trail, but our parking lots do fall into that. So we pushed our Woodside Green parking lot into that program, and we're able to realize economy of scale with that bid. But on the front end of that, we looked at the parking lot as a whole, and how do we plow it? How does the stormwater taken care of? That parking lot provides access to the creek. It provides access to the bike trail. We also need to provide access for fire and EMS to get in to and the fields that are out there as well. So that was designed in from the beginning, baked into the plan, if you will. Much like Trap Park is one that all we're doing is replacing a trail, and it seems so simple. But when it was done 20 years ago, it wasn't done with the thought of ADA access, and is this cross slope less than 1.5%, and can everyone in an equitable way get from this neighborhood to that neighborhood? So while something as simple as a little blacktop trail may seem easy and replaceable, in today's dollars and today's standards, it will take a little bit more time. It'll cost a little bit more money. I think I'm going in and out, but is that my cue to stop? Zach alluded to maintenance with the playgrounds, not only providing access for someone in a wheelchair, limited mobility around those playgrounds through sidewalks, but it also serves a maintenance purpose for us. That is a waypoint that we can pull a string from to marks on the playground equipment and know that the mulch is up to a certain level. So not only is it something outwardly facing and it makes it easier for people to get around, but we design that concrete in a way that we can mow around it. We 45 the corner so we can put a trash can on it. You can't mow into a 90-degree corner, so let's plan it and put a trash can there. Let's keep the trash cans out from underneath our shelter, so if someone throws a cigarette and it burns the trash can down, we don't lose a shelter. So after being in this work for about 3 decades, like, I have a lot of ideas, and they indulge me in letting me do them and letting me talk more. So thank you for your time. I'll turn this off.
Any questions for Alan? I'm going to hold, could you wait till, I'm going to get you a microphone so that way anybody at home who's watching now or later can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a brief mention about the road maintenance facility behind or near Friendship Park, but there was no elaboration on it. Could you elaborate on that and then potentially the timeline to that park or the facility movement or anything of the nature?
I cannot, because we don't have a plan for that right now
Okay.
yet. We're trying. I will share that sometime back in 2022, we actually sent an RFP out to the development community. We think we need about 10 to 12 acres of land in order to have the size facility that we need to bring together not only our parks operations, but our service operations as well. Right now we have the complex that's down at Friendship Park that has both the parks garage and our service garage, and then we have our fleet facility up on Science Boulevard. So if we were, our goal is to bring all of those units together onto one facility. That makes it more economical. We pay people to drive vehicles back and forth when they need to be repaired, not really cost or time efficient. But we sent an RFP out to the development community in 2022, asked them to find 10 to 12 acres in Gahanna, asked for estimated cost on design, build, lease, design, build, buy, and we received 0 responses because there aren't 10 to 12 acres in Gahanna for that facility. So we're continuing to explore options, turn over every stone literally on every piece of land that there is in Gahanna to see if it's something that could work for us. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to identify a viable option yet, but we're continuing to work on that. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? All right, well, this is perfect. We hope for it to be about an hour. It's 6:56 or 8, I can't tell without my glasses on. So I want to thank you very much for taking your time to be here tonight. As you heard, the Parks Master Plan identified a number of goals and recommendations that will now guide the Parks and Recreation Department once adopted by our council. They have to weigh in on this and ask questions and give their input before it is actually finalized as well. We've heard highlights tonight of what some of those goals and recommendations are, certainly what the visions were that were identified as part of the plan. And then we've also heard some of the projects that are already underway or already have been completed. And the great news is they are directly in line with what the community has told us you want from our Parks and Recreation Department. So we are on the right track, and that's phenomenal news for this team that works so incredibly hard. I know their hearts every day are in Parks and Recreation. How do they make the parks better? How do they make trails better? How do they add trails? You heard Alan talk about growing up here as a tadpole in the swimming pool and his own personal goals for what he'd like to see achieved through his job in the Parks and Recreation Department. And he is indicative of every one of these individuals every day who work and just want to make a better community for everybody. Quality of life of our residents is one of the top priorities that we have, and having a vibrant Parks and Recreation team and department and facilities and programming throughout our community is central to making sure that we have a high quality of life for our residents. I want to thank our steering committee, the Parks Board. I know Stephanie thanked everybody at the beginning. I'm going to reiterate that. Our steering committee again, our Parks Board, our Parks Foundation members. I neglected to recognize that we have a couple of school board members here as well, Sue Horn and Daphne Mooring. Sue serves on the Parks Board. Daphne was a member of our steering committee. Nancy McGregor, councilwoman, was a member of our steering committee. And I should call out our council members, Councilwoman Karen Angelo, Council President Stephen Renner, Councilwoman Kaylee Padova, Marissa Bowers, and Trenton Weaver, all here this evening. So I didn't miss anybody there, did I? All right. Thank you very much for your time as well. It takes a community to come together. And I want to thank the community for the response that was given through the survey that went, what, Stephanie, 60, 90 days about there out in the community? It takes time to fill those things out and let your voices be heard, and that's critical to creating the path and the vision forward for the community. What you want is what we need to be doing. So thank you again for your time tonight. If you have any questions after this, please feel free to reach out to myself or to a member of our team. We'll be happy to follow up with you. And everybody have a good night and a safe drive home.